I want to apologize in advance for the look of this presentation. I did not realize how small it would look on my screen and how basically invisible it would look. So I will attach the link to the PowerPoint as well as the video, and you can kind of put two and two together that way because there's no way of getting both in the same one. All right, so good afternoon, classmates and fellow students. My name is Caitlin, and I will be doing a presentation on resume writing and how to do that effectively. So over the course of this presentation, I will be covering the goal of the presentation, what a resume is, the purpose of a resume, how long your resume should be, what to include and what not to include in your resume, how to revise your resume before submitting, helpful links and resources that you can use if you find yourself getting stuck. And at the end, we will do an interactive Kahoot game where we will be giving out prizes. So I encourage you to pay attention and ask questions as we go along. So first, I'm going to start with the goal of the presentation. Essentially, my goal today is to provide an interactive youth and young adult centered workshop. So with the interaction, I am going to, like I mentioned, I will have the Kahoot at the end, so I encourage you to pay attention. There will be prizes available. We want you to be able to feel confident in your ability to write a resume at the conclusion of this presentation. Getting started, so here's a little video.
What is a resume? A resume is a brief account of your education, qualifications, skills, and previous work, research, classroom, and extracurricular experience. So, it's a piece of paper. Then why is it that writing a resume can strike fear in the hearts of even the bravest of job searchers? Much of it has to do with the influence a resume has on a job search. A resume defines your job search. If you can't clearly identify what you're looking for, how is an employer supposed to know? Not everything about your life can fit on a resume. Only share what is pertinent for that position and company. Tailor your resume for every position, every company, every time. A resume is your most important marketing strategy. In many cases, it may be your first impression. Make it a positive one. It must effectively market your abilities in 15 seconds or less. Strike a good balance, enough detail that the employer understands your achievements, but enough brevity that it is easily scanned. A resume is a request for an interview. Now that you've passed the 15-second scan, the depth of your related knowledge, skills, and abilities must convince the employer that you are the best candidate and deserve the interview. Don't save your best for the interview, use it to get the interview.
Alright, so that's the video explaining essentially what a resume is. Now we're going to go into more depth as to what a resume is. So as the video kind of mentioned, a resume is your most important tool when applying for a job. So basically it is a brief account of your educational experience, your skills and abilities, your work experience, qualifications, kind of what makes you the best candidate for that job. So essentially it's a piece of paper that details all of those important bits of information. So the purpose of the resume kind of covered in the slide before as well as the video. It's a marketing tool. It is used to summarize your skills, abilities, qualifications, to help the employer understand what, why you would be the best fit for the job. A resume is not an autobiography, so you're not giving your whole life story. You really want to get to know the job and what they're looking for before formulating your resume and including specific information. So the length of your resume. Typically the rule of thumb is approximately 2 pages. If your experience is minimal, 1 page is okay, as long as you're able to capture all of the information on that 1 page without short selling yourself. If you have an abundance of information, lots of work experience, school experience, volunteering, qualities, that kind of stuff, 3 pages maximum is kind of what they say, but 1 to 2 pages is definitely sufficient. You don't want to go overboard with your information because you'll lose the attention of the employer. So what to include in a resume? So there are several kind of subtopics, headings that you want to include in your resume. So firstly, you're going to have your contact information, and then you're going to have your opening statement, or formerly called an objective, your list of skills, list of technical and software skills, personal attributes, that kind of goes with a career overview, educational qualifications, employment and volunteer experience, references, and testimonials. So firstly, contact details. What's important in this section here is your name, email address, and best phone number for the employer to reach you at. It is not required that you include your home address, and this information really should not be included in the header because some softwares can't process information located in the headers. Your opening statement and objective is kind of a summary of who you are, briefly where you studied, what would make you the best fit for that job, and it should typically be a maximum of 6 lines. This is kind of your 15-second capsule, as the video mentioned, where you capture the employer's attention. Key skills and strengths. So as I mentioned before, you really want to know what the job entails. You want to tailor your skills to what the employer is looking for. Rule of thumb is typically around 10. You want to have 10 skills and strengths that you possess that would make you a good fit for the job. This is where you also want to list accomplishments that relate to the job. So if you've won an award, or you've, anything really you've achieved that is remarkable that you can kind of fit into this job description. Technical and software skills, this really just pertains to, if you can use spreadsheets, if you can use Excel, but this doesn't always pertain to every job. So if you're not applying for an office job that involves computers, you can totally omit this section. Personal attributes, so this is similar to skills, but this is what really makes you the best candidate. So again, you're trying to demonstrate that you are the right fit for this job. You want to relay that you are reliable, honest, trustworthy, a quick learner, for example. And here, rule of thumb is typically you want to have 3 to 5 personal attributes. Educational history, you want to start with your highest level of education and then work backwards. So if high school is your highest level of education, that's fine. List that one first. Whereas if you're college, university graduate, you want to list the highest level and go backwards, okay? You want to list a few bullet points of your academic achievements. So if you were an honor student, you can put that. If you achieved the highest grade in a certain subject area, you can include that as well. Or even groups and clubs that you participated in your schooling. Employment history. So like your education history, you want to begin with the most recent job that you've had and work backwards. So you want to include the position, title, and the dates that you worked, so when you started, when you finished, or if you're still presently working there. If you've no previous employment, that's okay. You can add in co-op placements, you can put in internships, volunteer experiences, anything that really shows that you've demonstrated some form of work. References, you want to include at least 2 is rule of thumb, people that will positively recommend you. So it could be past employers, it could be friends, it could be teachers, guidance counselors, anything to that degree. You want to include their name, their position or title, and a specific piece of contact information, ideally a phone number. And with this, you always want to make sure that you contact this person prior to listing them as a reference, just so that they know that this call could be coming. Testimonial. So basically what a testimonial is a short quote written by someone else. So one of your references could write something that essentially sells you. Why are you right for the job? So this is something written by someone else to help sell your application. So it should be a maximum of 1 to 2 sentences and no more than 1 or 2 testimonials. Keywords, you really want to stick to words that if a computer generator is going over your resume, it will pick up. So words like skills, jobs, activities, qualifications, tools, those kinds of things. What not to include. So you are not required to include personal and private information. What I mean by this is you're not required to give out your birthday, your gender, address, any ailments or disabilities, or your current health status. This all goes to say if one of these things would benefit you in the potential job that you are applying for, like they're looking for a young female, then that is when this information will become appropriate, but again, it is not necessary. So you want to really review your resume for typos and factual errors. So spelling is something they look for. You definitely want to check that over. You want to double check everything, especially because, typos are one thing, but a mistake. So for example, if you misspell the company name or if you call the company by the wrong name, that's an even worse mistake than making a typo. So you always want to review what you've written. You don't want to include images or graphics, and you want to avoid headers if at all possible. You also want to avoid fancy formatting. So common fonts to use in writing resumes include Verdana, Arial, Century Gothic, and Calibri. For the main content, you want to stick between 10 to 11 point font. And for like titles, headers, you want to stick to 12 to 14 point at most. You don't want to have tables or PDF versions of your resume for the reason, again, that certain softwares can't read these specifics. Reviewing your resume. So it's important that, yes, you review your resume, but it's also important that you get someone else, someone that you trust, to look it over for any errors, anything you missed, anything they could add. So this could be a former coworker or employer, a teacher, a career counselor, your parents or guardians, or friends. It's really, really important to look it over because, again, if you mess up on your resume, you likely will not secure an interview. So helpful resources. Here we just have listed some helpful resources for your benefit if you decide that you want to look into writing your resume a little bit further, you want to better yourself, better your skills. So I will leave a copy of these for you when the presentation is over. And at this time we will participate in our interactive Kahoot. So I will now ask you at this time to pull out your mobile device. If you do not have one, you can share with the person beside you. You're going to go to Kahoot, KAHOOT.IT, and at that point a page will come up asking you to put in a 6-digit PIN, and that will allow you to log into the game. So that essentially is the conclusion of the presentation. I am going to attach the username and password for the Kahoot so that you, Kimberly, can log in, see our questions, see what kind of things we included, what information, and how we made this an interactive presentation. And at the end, we have included all of our references. Thank you for listening.